Hey Taurus Ascendant, how you doing? This is a forecast taking you from Monday, the 10th of November, right the way through to Sunday, the 16th of November, 2025. Now, I'm recording this on the 8th of November, and it's been a pretty amazingly changeable week that we've just gone through. You know, we've had Mars going into Sagittarius, we had the full moon in Taurus, we had Venus going into Scorpio, we also had Uranus retrograding into Taurus, that's happening today, and also Mercury will have already gone retrograde. It's happening tomorrow, but this is when I'll be releasing the video. So by the time you listen to this, Mercury will also be retrograde in the sign of Sagittarius. That's a lot of movement. You might be pleased to hear there's not so much movement or exact aspects between planets in this week ahead. In fact, there's only one exact aspect between the planets, and that's between Mars and Mercury. So in this weekly forecast, what I'm really going to do is look at the impact of Mars and Mercury. They're coming into a conjunction, they're interacting with each other, Mercury's retrograde. I'm going to examine this from your perspective as a Taurus ascendant and see what it might do. Now, this is the second conjunction that Mars and Mercury have had in this series. One took place in the sign of Scorpio on the 20th of October, this one in Sagittarius on the 12th of November, and the next one will be on the 18th of January in the sign of Capricorn. So it's Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn. So I'm going to piece it all together through the context of this week ahead. So wish me luck. If you're new to this channel, by the way, my name is Louisa Tanner Munson. Welcome to Feel Good Astrology. And just before I get going, I just want to say a massive thank you and shout out to the people who have historically or who are regularly sponsoring my channel. I really love you. Thank you so much. So let's have a look. So we know that Mercury's just gone retrograde just the day before. And obviously we're talking about the 10th of November, right the way through to the 16th of November. Like I say, I'm only looking at planet to planet aspects, exact ones, you know, the moon flows and things like that. I look at much more deeply in my memberships. If you're interested in that, just check that out as well. But we do also have the moon changing signs. The moon's going into Leo on the 10th, on Monday the 10th. Then on the 12th, we've got the moon going into Virgo, actually on the same day that Mars and Mercury will come into a conjunction. And then finally, we've got the moon going into Libra on the 15th. So yeah, the moon is going to be going through your 4th house, your 5th, and into your 6th in this week ahead. So there's also that's going to create some meaning. Now, before I go any further, let's just have a look at the positions here. So you can see Mercury and Mars are quite close together. Mercury's overshot Mars. At the end of the week, Mars has gone this way and Mercury's gone this way. So they're separating. They're still in a conjunction, but from the 18th, so from next week, next Tuesday, I think not this Tuesday coming, but the Tuesday after, they will actually be out of a conjunction for almost a month. So we've got just 1 week really to continue to use this amazing energy between them. And so that's what I want to talk about, because we've got Mars and Mercury together. Mars is obviously about our strength, our physical vitality. It really talks about us creating boundaries and being able to hold boundaries very strong. It gives us a huge enthusiasm and a drive and determination. You know, Mars is pretty cool. In the sign of Sagittarius, Mars really kind of takes war to a philosophical level. You know, the sign of Sagittarius is full of contemplation and curiosity. You know, it's quite lively. And so Mars here isn't such a physical warmonger, but he is an intellectual and philosophical truth kind of person. And so Mars here is bringing this element of I need the truth in quite a strong way. Now, this is showing up in your 8th house, and the 8th house is a place where we often have our shadow. And, you know, it often shows where we might be you know, where we might have struggled in our relationships with other people. It also shows where we might have something to do with other people's money in this week ahead. So you might have to manage finances or shared resources with somebody else, and all the kinds of upset that can come with that. When you're interacting closely with people, we can fall out. This is a place where we really need to trust the people around us. It's also quite a sexy place, and so Mars here in the sign of Sagittarius is going to be very enthusiastic. So that's something to look forward to. Now, Mercury retrograde. Mercury's not strong in the sign of Sagittarius. Mercury likes to have facts and figures and black and white and yes and no. And of course, in the sign of Sagittarius, it's all a big story. And it's contextual and it's philosophical and it's very nuanced and curious and kind of playful. And so Mercury here is a little bit lost, because he wants the truth, and Mars is really wanting him to get the truth, and yet he's also uncomfortable. Nothing is black and white. And with the retrograde that's coming in, yes, we'll have a kind of bold voice, or you'll have, sorry, I don't have Taurus ascendant, but yes, you'll have a bold voice in this week ahead. However, you might have a bold voice that is questioning. So you'll be asking strong questions and reflecting on strong situations to do with blame, shame, guilt, anger, resentment, and the kinds of difficulties that get sort of brushed under the carpet, but they can only stay under the carpet so long. And this is the time. This could be the week when some very deep stuff comes up to be dealt with. So I think in this week ahead, you're going to be revisiting trust for sure. Intimacy, I mentioned it's quite sexual, so that can also be quite helpful. And yeah, how you're going to manage your shared resources. I think there's going to be a lot of things going on about that. Expect conversations about money and energetic boundaries. Mars is all about boundaries, but of course, when we're working closely or living closely with people, this can take us back into the realms of our birth family, like our mum and dad and siblings, retirement things, inheritance, also bank loans and things like that. Anywhere where you are currently using resources that belong to somebody else that you might be paying for or you might be owed. So it's a very sticky place. And Mars is going to want to go headlong into it, and Mercury is going to need to really make sure that he's got the right end of the stick, so he doesn't get confused and find it difficult. But mostly we're facing our shadows. That's the thing that I think is really, really obvious. And because it's also the sign of Sagittarius, there's also a feeling of liberation. When you get out the other side, it feels really quite good. And so, yeah, if we add in the moon flows as well. So, on the 10th, the moon is going through the 4th house, which is about your home and family, and the moon is going to go into a lovely trine with Mercury retrograde and also a trine with Mars in quick succession. So I think between the 10th and the 12th, there can be some really good moves forward with, the people you might need to understand a lot better. When the moon goes into Virgo on the 12th, also the day when we've got this exact conjunction between Mars and Mercury retrograde, we're going to have a square to the moon. And that can create some difficulty if you've got children, which, the 5th house rules children, amongst other things. You might find that there's a situation with shared resources that you have with your children that really needs to get ironed out very, very quickly. And it's going to be a very, very exact square. So this could be quite difficult. The 5th house is also a place where we might meet somebody new. We might go on a date. I might wait. I might wait a little bit for that date. I think the 12th is a day to be very, very cautious. Also, if you're creating something, like if you've birthed something like a project, and it's got a very with all projects, we have moments where we might release things, launch things, move things around and stuff. I just think the 12th, because of the moon in an exact square to Mercury retrograde and also to Mars, it's a day when things might be a bit too impetuous and difficult to navigate. So I would caution you just to wait a couple of days. In fact, until maybe when the moon goes into the sign of Libra on the 15th, that's Saturday the 15th. The moon is going to make a lovely sextile to Mercury retrograde. Mercury is still retrograde, but to me, it feels like his introverted thinking is very, very helpful and beneficial to the flow of your life. And I think it's a lot easier to navigate some of the stuff that is coming up. Also, as the moon goes into an exact sextile with Mars a bit later on the 15th, I also think that there's going to be a feeling of life returning. I think you're going to be quite busy, and I think there's going to be quite a lot to sort out. So that's a few thoughts about this time. Now, I just want to sort of add in the sort of connection to Capricorn, because the first of these conjunctions happened on the 20th of October. I don't know if you can remember what you were doing around that time, but that's when Mars and Mercury came together in your 7th house. And this could be important because Mars and Mercury together, they are here to help you have bold thinking and to have spiritual courage. And here, this is like courage of conviction in your relationship. This is, a conjunction that would have brought up a feeling of moving forwards in relationships. So this particular conjunction on the 12th in the sign of Sagittarius, I think is maybe what happens when relationships go deeper. We come into a moment where we can trust more. And usually when we come into deeper trust, we often get tested just to see if the person that we want to trust is trustworthy. So I do think there's a little bit of a challenge there. When Mercury and Mars next come around together, it's going to be on the 18th of January at 26 degrees. This is going to be in your 9th house. And the 9th house is a place of adventure. It's a place of study. It's a place of intelligence and teaching and sharing and broadcasting and doing things from a whole different perspective. And so whatever your journey is at the moment, if you recognize this, and maybe what was starting for you around the 20th of October, by the end of, or by the 18th of January, I think you've really taken it to a whole new level. And this will be the last of the 3 conjunctions together in this series. Usually you just have one conjunction, every year when Mercury comes into an alignment with Mars, but this is quite a special one. So you might be thinking, if these first 2 descriptions of how you might be using this energy is resonating, then you might want to think about what you might choose to do with this energy at the end of January. So I'm going to leave that there. I hope that was helpful for you. Have a fabulous week ahead and hope to catch up with you all soon. Lots of love. Bye for now.